You know that one kid? The one who seems like he's doing everything right? Nice to his parents, smart, clean cut, has a future. That was Chandler Halderson. On paper, he was the golden boy, college student, tech job, girlfriend, supportive family, a big new job lined up with SpaceX, even plans to move to Florida and start his life. But behind that perfect image, Chandler was lying to everyone. And when those lies started to unravel, he did something no one could have imagined. Not his girlfriend, not his brother, not even his parents, who had always believed in him. This is the story of how a web of lies turned deadly. A missing couple, a fake job, a cabin in the woods, and a son who would go further than anyone thought possible, just to keep up appearances. Let's go back to the beginning. Chandler Halderson was born on March 15, 1998. He was the younger of two boys, with an older brother named Mitchell, who was just a year ahead of him. Their parents, Bart and Krista Halderson, were raising their family in Windsor, Wisconsin, just a short drive from Madison. Now from the outside, this was the kind of family that looked, well, pretty picture perfect. Krista worked in customer service. Bart had a respectable job at an international accounting firm. They owned a cozy cabin that had been passed down from Krista's grandparents. It was their weekend escape. Quiet, simple. And according to everyone who knew them, they were close. Like, involved in each other's lives, kind of close. They supported their boys and seemed proud of the men they were becoming. But what the Haldersons didn't know, what no one knew, was that Chandler was living a lie so elaborate, it belonged in a movie script. In 2021, Chandler was 23, still living at home. He told everyone he was attending Madison College and working part-time at an insurance company. He had a girlfriend, Catherine, who had been around for a couple years and even got along great with his parents. Everything seemed normal, until it didn't. See, Chandler had been telling his family and Catherine that he was taking online classes, mostly because of COVID, but eventually his parents started asking questions like, "Hey, can we see your transcript?" Seems like a simple, supportive parent thing to ask, right? Chandler's response? Sure, no problem. But there was a problem. A big one. Because Chandler wasn't in school. He'd actually flunked out of Madison College years earlier. Now, a lot of people might try to come clean at that point, or at least throw together a few weak excuses. Not Chandler. Instead, he doubled down. He created fake email addresses for imaginary school administrators and started sending emails to his parents, pretending to be school staff. One of the made-up names was Daniel Spieth. Chandler even tried to set up a Zoom meeting between Bart, himself, and this imaginary Daniel to clear things up. But every time, something came up. Technical issues, last-minute emergencies, COVID. Always an excuse. Bart, though, wasn't giving up. He just wanted to help his son. He tried contacting other school officials, real ones. But Chandler kept intercepting everything, creating new fake emails with new names, all to keep up the illusion. Investigators later found out all those emails came from the Halderson home's IP address. Chandler even used his own birthday when setting up some of the fake accounts. But that wasn't the only lie Chandler was juggling. Remember the insurance job? Yeah, also fake. He told people he was working part-time, but he had no job at all. When questioned about his finances, he claimed his paychecks were getting sent to the wrong address due to a payroll error. A classic, "I'd totally have money if not for this one silly mistake" kind of excuse. And then things got even more ridiculous. Chandler told everyone including his girlfriend, that he had landed a job at SpaceX. Yes, that SpaceX, Elon Musk's SpaceX. He said he'd been offered a full-time position in Florida with an $80,000 starting salary, and even asked Catherine to move down there with him. They started looking at houses together online. He told his family all about it. It was the perfect, I'm making it big story. But like all his stories, Chandler needed an escape plan. Because Florida, SpaceX, that wasn't happening. So Chandler invented another twist. He said he'd suffered a serious head injury. According to Chandler, he fell down the stairs at his parents' house, went to the hospital, and was diagnosed with everything from potential paralysis to a brain bleed to spinal damage. He said he couldn't drive or fly, and therefore had to delay the big move to Florida. He wore a neck brace around the house, claimed SpaceX would hold the job for him until he recovered. But again, none of it was true. Medical records showed he had nothing more than a mild concussion. Doctors gave him a neck brace because he complained about pain, but they told him to follow up in a few weeks. There was no traumatic brain injury, no spinal issue, just another mask to cover up the truth. Meanwhile, Bart, who still believed in his son, was trying to help him move forward. He knew Chandler needed transcripts and certifications to officially land the job with SpaceX. On June 29, 2021, Bart decided enough was enough. He stopped emailing, stopped waiting on fake Zoom calls. He picked up the phone and called Madison College directly, and he got someone real, a man named Omar Job. This was the moment it all started to unravel. Around the same time, Daniel, a family acquaintance, was trying to get in touch with Krista. He hadn't heard from her, which was strange, so he asked Chandler if everything was okay. Chandler's excuse? They're up at the cabin, no service, you know how it is. Daniel bought it, at first, even had Chandler over for the 4th of July celebration. Chandler showed up, chatted with people, acted like nothing was wrong. He even told Daniel that his parents were coming back the next day. Thing is, Krista had told Daniel earlier that she had a super important doctor's appointment on Monday, an appointment she would never miss. Monday came. Krista didn't show. Tuesday. Still no sign. Wednesday. Daniel had had enough. He contacted Chandler and insisted they file a missing persons report. Chandler agreed. He even went down to the police station and gave a statement. Chandler's first version of the story? He claimed a couple, total strangers, had picked his parents up and driven them to the cabin for the weekend. Thing is, both of Bart and Krista's cars were still at the house, and no one in the family knew who this mystery couple was. Police weren't buying it. On Thursday, July 8th, Chandler's older brother Mitchell drove out to the cabin himself. Police met him there, and it was clear no one had been there recently. No signs of life. Meanwhile, Chandler was back in the neighborhood going door to door, asking neighbors if they'd seen his parents. There's even doorbell cam footage of him doing this. But behind the scenes, police were already suspicious. None of it made sense. That same day, Chandler was brought in again. This time, he changed his story. Now he claimed Bart and Krista had rushed to the cabin because of a plumbing emergency. Again, police had just been to the cabin. No plumbing issue. The interview turned into an interrogation. Detectives told Chandler they knew his story didn't hold water, and that they believed his parents were no longer alive. Chandler asked for a lawyer, ending the interview. He was arrested, initially not for murder, but for providing false information in a missing persons case. But then, things escalated. A local farm owner called the police. She said she'd seen Chandler acting strange on her property a few days earlier, coming out of the woods. Police searched the area. There, they discovered a male torso. On July 10th, it was confirmed to be Bart Halderson. Chandler was charged with his murder, dismemberment, and hiding a corpse. But Krista was still missing. Here's where Catherine, Chandler's girlfriend, comes in again. She remembered that on July 3rd, Chandler had been near the Wisconsin River, according to his Snapchat location. It struck her as odd because he never mentioned it. She took a screenshot at the time, just in case. When she gave that location to police, they searched the area, and that's where they found Krista. Her remains were recovered. Chandler was charged with her murder too. In the days after Bart and Krista Halderson were last seen alive, the picture of what happened inside their Windsor, Wisconsin home started to take shape. And what authorities uncovered was both horrifying and deeply tragic. When Chandler Halderson first told police that his parents had gone off to their family cabin for the weekend, investigators found it odd, but not immediately alarming. But the story began unraveling quickly when no trace of the couple could be found at the supposed destination. The cabin neighbors hadn't seen them. Surveillance footage from nearby roads showed no sign of the couple traveling in that direction. And, most telling, there was no evidence they'd even left the house. As police dug deeper, they uncovered disturbing inconsistencies. Investigators believe that on the morning of July 1st, 2021, Chandler shot his father, Bart, inside the family home. Evidence from the home pointed to a violent confrontation in or near the basement, where investigators later discovered blood that had been cleaned up. Gunshot residue and ballistic analysis supported that Bart had died from a firearm wound, likely at close range. It's believed Krista was killed later that same day, possibly after returning home and discovering what had happened to her husband. While Chandler never confessed to the sequence of events, forensic evidence suggested Krista was also shot inside the home. Both deaths occurred within hours of one another, sometime between the morning and early afternoon. After the killings, Chandler took significant and calculated steps to cover up the crime. He dismembered both of his parents and attempted to hide or scatter their remains across multiple rural areas in southern Wisconsin. Police later recovered parts of Bart's body on a property belonging to Chandler's girlfriend's family. More of Bart and Krista's remains were found days later near the Wisconsin River and other wooded locations. Some remains were burned. Others were placed in plastic bags and left in remote areas. These actions weren't just attempts to evade detection, they were cold efforts to erase the crime itself. Chandler Halderson's trial began in January 2022, just 6 months after the disappearance of his parents shocked the Madison, Wisconsin area. From the start, prosecutors laid out what they called a breathtaking series of lies that ultimately led to murder. The jury heard how Chandler had spent years pretending to be a college student, attending no classes, and faking emails from school administrators. They were shown how he claimed to work for SpaceX, going so far as to create fake job offers and even invent communication with Elon Musk's company. In court, the evidence against Chandler was overwhelming. Jurors saw digital trails from his phone, showing him visiting remote wooded areas after his parents vanished. His online searches, like body decomposition and how to get blood out of concrete, were chilling. Forensic specialists confirmed the presence of human blood in the family's basement. Detectives testified about the gruesome discovery of Bart and Krista's remains, scattered across several locations. But what may have struck the jury the most was Chandler's behavior. He showed little emotion. He stared straight ahead. And when his own defense team had the chance to call witnesses or present evidence, they declined. They offered no alternate theory, no counterargument. In the end, Chandler didn't take the stand. The prosecution's case stood alone. After just 2 hours of deliberation, the jury returned its verdict: guilty on all counts. Chandler Halderson was convicted of 2 counts of first-degree intentional homicide, along with charges of providing false information to law enforcement, mutilating a corpse, and hiding a corpse. In March 2022, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. At sentencing, Judge John Hyland didn't hold back. He described Chandler's actions as heinous, disturbing, and cowardly, and said the level of deception and violence made him a danger to society. The judge pointed out that Chandler had every opportunity to make different choices, but instead chose to protect his lies at the cost of 2 lives. Friends and relatives gave heartbreaking impact statements in court, remembering Bart and Krista as devoted parents, beloved co-workers, and kind-hearted people who didn't deserve what happened to them. The courtroom was filled with grief and disbelief that someone so close to them could have carried out such a brutal betrayal. To this day, Chandler Halderson has never explained his actions. No apology, no confession, no remorse. In the end, the story of Bart and Krista Halderson isn't just a true crime case. It's a tragedy that left an entire community asking how something so horrific could happen behind closed doors. We may never fully understand why Chandler did what he did, but what we can do is remember Bart and Krista for how they lived, as kind, hard-working people who loved their family deeply. Their legacy is not in the headlines. It's in the hearts of those who knew them, and in the justice that now speaks for them. Thanks for watching. If this story moved you, consider subscribing and sharing this video to help keep their memory alive and to support the telling of real stories that deserve to be heard.